ability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Marge Lauber, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the current issues of the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So the first Observer we're reading from is from Thursday, April 16th, and there were some shiny moments. Sunny celebrates Lucas West's voice showing. Lucas West, a senior at the State University of New York at Fredonia, concluded his run at NBC's hit show The Voice during the season finale on Tuesday, earning national recognition for his performances throughout the competition. West and three other finalists each performed two songs on the final episode. West chose Cold as Ice by Foreigner, and later in the show sang Ordinary People by John Legend, who was West's coach on The Voice. West did not play the piano on Cold as Ice, but played the piano without an accompaniment band for Ordinary People. Your voice sounded more clear and powerful than ever, Legend told West after his first performance. I love that you did Ordinary People. Really on your own. Coach Adam Levine said following West's second performance, that is a purity of you. I am so proud of Lucas, Legend said later in the show. I love working with a real musician who understands what it means to be a pianist, be an arranger, and of course, what it means to be a great vocalist and performer. West finished third in the final vote. City man who pled guilty in gun incident in Mayville, a Dunkirk man who got to trial and got a hung jury after being accused of unintentionally shooting two youths in a 2022 drive-by incident in Dunkirk, has accepted a plea agreement instead of having another trial. The new trial, which was on the court calendar for next week, was going to include new charges involving a threat with a gun made in 2024. So, according to District Attorney Jason Schmidt on Wednesday, 43-year-old Juan Cruz Cordelzia entered a guilty plea of first-degree assault for the 2022 incident and third-degree criminal possession of a weapon for the 2024 incident. The guilty pleas come with a sentence promise of 5 years of incarceration. On the 2022 incident, it's to run concurrent with 3 to 7 years on the gun possession charges. State, Mayor Wojciechowicz proclaims Child Abuse Prevention Month. The City of Dunkirk's honored Child Abuse Prevention Strengthening Families Month on Tuesday with a Pinwheels for Prevention event. So during the month, emphasis is placed on the importance of families and communities working together and strengthening families to prevent child abuse and neglect. The Dunkirk mayor issued a proclamation during the event declaring April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the city. And she stated that Child Abuse Prevention Month serves as a powerful reminder of our shared responsibility to protect the well-being of all children and to support families in building strong, healthy foundations. And then the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, for months, New York Governor Kathy Hochul has resisted calls to increase taxes on the wealthy, beating back progressives who have made hounded her from Manhattan to Puerto Rico, billowing claims of tax the rich. Now she's pitching a compromise. The moderate Democrat says she will push to create a new tax on multi-million-dollar homes in New York known as pied-à-terre, attempting to appease Mayor Zoran Mamdani and his supporters, while also tending to her concerns about destabilizing the state's finances. The idea announced Wednesday would allow the city to impose a tax surcharge on secondary residents worth over $5 million, with the governor's office saying it could generate at least $500 million annually as Mamdani moves to fill a multi-billion-dollar budget hole and fund his ambitious agenda. Wow. So Melania Trump, our president's wife, in Washington, She made a rare appearance at Capitol Hill Wednesday to push Congress to pass bills broadening access to services for young people in foster care, calling it a moral imperative. The First Lady began working on foster care issues after President Donald Trump's first term ended in 2021. Her trip followed a similar and successful lobbying effort last year to get Congress to send legislation to the President to protect women and children from online sexual exploitation. The visit came a week after Melania Trump's surprise on-camera statement at the White House in which she denied ties to Jeffrey Epstein and knowledge of his crimes and urged Congress to hold a hearing for his victims. She also demanded an end to lies linking her to the late financier and convicted sex offender. On Capitol Hill, she said youngsters in foster care face barriers to housing, transportation, and education, and other challenges outside the classroom that affect their academic performance. We can close this gap, Melania Trump said. New legislation for the foster care community is a moral imperative. She met Wednesday afternoon with members of the House Ways and Means Committee who introduced the new legislation, and she also heard from people who were in foster care. Jaden Martinez, a freshman at Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, said he received just over $2,000 in support per semester, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. He said he supports raising the cap on that financial support. Joshua Fetting, who said she aged out of the system at 21, said thousands of foster care are doing everything right but still struggling because the systems to support them have not kept pace with her needs. She said she lost her parents at age 12 and during college worked 3 jobs, even with scholarships, to meet her housing, food, and other needs. Fetty, who is now 22 and a substitute teacher for grades pre-K through 8, as well as a peer navigator for young adults in foster care, said the purpose changing matters because we are expecting young people to achieve self-sufficiency without providing support to do so. And then in other news, there is a skin scratch testing reveals a false positive to peanut allergy. This is to your good health. And Dr. Roach. So they say, Dear Dr. Roach, I recently underwent skin scratch testing for food allergies. I was shocked that among the positive findings were peanuts. I've eaten peanuts all my life, and I'm 55, and I've never had any type of reaction to peanuts. I was given an EpiPen and told to avoid peanuts. Well, the same skin testing results were confirmed by a second allergist. I'm afraid that avoiding peanuts will sensitize me to them when I feel that I'm currently desensitized. I do have chronic inflammation and rheumatoid arthritis, so I don't want to ingest something that may cause an inflammatory response. Prior to the skin testing, blood tests showed a very low sensitivity to peanuts. What's your opinion on this? Dr. Roach says, most patients and many physicians have trouble with understanding false positive and false negative results. Very few, if any. Medical tests are perfect. There is an exception to nearly every rule. Some tests are very far from perfect, and scratch testing for allergies are one of these tests. Scratch testing is sensitive. It will rarely miss a true case of peanut allergy, but isn't especially specific, meaning that when it says you are positive, it might be wrong. For people in whom a peanut allergy isn't suspected, the chance of this being a false positive becomes higher. And then, Dear Dr. Roach, here's another one. I have just found out I have mild tricuspid vacuolar regurgitation, and I'm really scared. I'm a single mom of 4 kids. 2 of them have autism, and I am the only parent they have. I just sent you my echocardiogram results. Should I worry or be scared? Dr. Roach said, I looked at your echocardiogram results. Although it does sound scary that one of your valves is regurgitant, which means leaking, meaning that the valve allows some blood to flow backward into the right ventricle and the right atrium. This is extremely common. Over 80% of healthy people will have some kind of tricuspid regurgitation. When the echocardiogram says that the regurgitation is trivial or mild, you can relax and know that this has no significance, and it doesn't increase your risk of any kind of heart disease. Single parents always have my respect, and to raise 4 children alone surely qualifies you for something close to sainthood. And we have a Wall Street report here. In New York, the U.S. stock market hit a record Wednesday after adding to its 2-week rally built on hopes that the war with Iran won't create a worst-case scenario for the global economy. Whether Wall Street's correct to have so much hope for peace and whether stocks should be the highest they've ever seen remains to be seen. The Standard & Poor's 500 rose 0.8% and eclipsed its prior all-time high set in January after falling nearly 10% below its record in late March, a drop steep enough that Wall Street calls it a correction. The index at the heart of many 401k accounts has since soared more than 10% higher. Much of the rally has been due to expectations for calming tensions in the war and resumption of the full flow of oil from the Persian Gulf to customers worldwide. Hopes to remain high Wednesday as officials told the Associated Press, and the United States and Iran had an in-principle agreement to extend a ceasefire to allow for more diplomacy. Okay, let's go back to the area police. In Jamestown, Leona Rodriguez, 36 of Jamestown, was charged Tuesday with felony driving while intoxicated, leaving the scene of a property damage accident, an unlicensed operator. According to police at 11:12 p.m., officers responded to a downtown business for a property damage accident that had just occurred. It was reported that one of the vehicles had left the scene and officers tracked it back to the registered owner's address. So upon making contact with the operator of the vehicle, which was Rodriguez, it was found that she had been allegedly operating the vehicle in an intoxicated condition at the time of the accident. So she was placed into custody without incident and taken to Jamestown City Jail. And then there was the Lakewood Bustide Police Department. Jessica Spaganello and Mackenzie L. Haskins both were charged Monday with second-degree harassment, disorderly conduct, and endangering the welfare of a child. So according to police, at about 8:20 p.m., officers responded to 2 females fighting at Richard or Hartley Park in Lakewood. Upon arrival, and after a brief investigation, Spaganello and Haskins were placed into custody and released. My goodness. Let's move on to the next issue, which is, let's see, April 17th, which was last Friday. So the Comedy Center seeks $200,000 from Pittsburgh for Pittsburgh Cleveland marketing. The National Comedy Center is seeking some funds from the county to help promote the center, particularly in parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania. This week, National Comedy Center Director Journey Gunderson and Marketing Director Gary Hahn met with the County Legislators Planning and Economic Development Committee to discuss a request of $200,000 from the county's 3% occupancy tax reserves. The occupancy tax is generated from visitors and guests who stay at hotels, motels, and short-term rentals. This is not about sustaining the National Comedy Center operationally. This is about leveraging a proven asset to bring new visitors and more economic impact into the county outside of it, Gunderson said. Then there was a Dunkirk man who was charged in narcotics probe. An investigation into narcotics activity in Pomfret has led to the arrest of a Dunkirk man. A search warrant was executed at 9:44 a.m. past Tuesday by a narcotics investigator from the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office and the Jamestown Police Department at 5341 Van Buren Boulevard, located inside the residence at the time of the search was Andrew S. Betts, who is 43. And unfortunately, we do have some deaths to report here. There's a John L. Mancuso, Johnny, who was only 10, of Jamestown. He passed away peacefully in his home Wednesday, April 15th, with his mom and dad by his side. Tracy Gloss, who was 64 in Dunkirk, passed away peacefully at home on Monday, April 13th. Mary Lou Frederickson, who was 65 of Hanover Road, Forestville, died Monday, April 13th. Dolly Comstock, 84, Cassadaga, passed away April 13th. And Miss Joan Carol Anson, 72, was called home on April 10th. We're going to go on to our local and national news now. There is a pair of fire districts cited for lack of payments. But first, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Reader Reading Service. So, a pair of fire districts are facing the loss of future support regarding a lack of payment to Chautauqua County. And the Chautauqua County Office of the County Attorney said in a news release issued Thursday that it is taking steps to resolve unpaid fees owed by the Forestville and Fewsburg fire districts for advanced life support, ambulance intercepts, and is preparing next actions to ensure compliance. If the districts continue to refuse payment of the amount due, the county may be forced to suspend certain services currently provided to the districts. Our duty is straightforward. When the county lawfully bills for the services, it provides we must pursue payment for those services so the taxpayers are treated fairly, said County Attorney Emily Woodward. This is not a dispute the county sought out, but it is one we must resolve responsibly. Chautauqua County Emergency Medical Services began supporting ALS ambulance intercepts to Forestville and Fewsburg in 2022 as part of its standard support for districts and require high-level medical care during the emergency responders. ALS intercepts occur when a basic life support agency requests advanced life support assistance from CCEMS to ensure patients receive appropriate care during transport. These services are provided at the request of the district and delivered in accordance with state law and established protocols. There's a Jamestown woman, too, in another news, who passed away after a thruway crash. So an accident on the New York State Thruway in the town of Evans claimed the life of a Jamestown woman. New York State Police reported at approximately 7:32 a.m. Wednesday, that was last week Wednesday. They responded to a one-vehicle collision in the eastbound lanes 4 miles from the Evans-Angola exit, and an investigation determined that a 2003 Dodge Caravan traveling eastbound on the driving lane to the passing lane, then traveled into the north shoulder, causing the Dodge to overturn. One of the passengers, Linda Hanley, 69, suffered serious injuries and was airlifted to Erie County Medical Center, where she succumbed to her injuries. Okay, let's move on to our April 18th and 19th, which was Saturday and Sunday's Observer. We have a Sheridan discusses Eagle Bay site. In Sheridan, one of the most sizable pieces of land in the town of Sheridan, the vacant Eagle Bay site, was up for discussion at a recent Planning and Zoning Board meeting. The Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency, the IDA, was recently awarded $675,000 of Empire State Development funding for a future project at Eagle Bay, a 657-acre site along Route 5 in the town of Sheridan. The Planning and Zoning Board discussed the matter at its April meeting. Brian Aldridge, Tom Hawk, and Steve Muck of the Planning and Zoning Board discussed potential planning and zoning implications of future developments at the site. It is owned by Steve St. George and is currently zoned as recreational land. Eagle Bay is the largest single-owner site receiving grant funding from Empire State Development through this round of the FAST New York initiative. While the county IDA received $675,000 of grant funding, that represents only half of the total project cost of $1.35 million. The Planning and Zoning Board did not discuss specifics of the project. They did say, however, that development of the property could result in zoning changes in the area to attract larger employers and high-tech manufacturing companies. And in other news, demand for beef remains strong despite its challenges. One segment of the local agriculture community that isn't struggling for a market is the beef industry. Unlike grape farmers who are dealing with Refresco canceling local grape contracts, farmers who are raising beef cattle are still seeing strong consumer demand and price increases in the market. Southwestern New York dairy, livestock, and field crops, team livestock specialist, and team leader with Cornell Cooperative Extension, Amy Barkley, said national consumption demand for beef remains strong even considering price increases. And I don't know if any of you have been going grocery shopping or sent somebody grocery shopping, but the price of beef is horrendous. If you want to buy a steak, you probably have to almost mortgage your house. So, according to the USDA, this is primarily a result of the continued trend of declining cattle numbers and the commodity market caused by the ripple effects of droughts that have been plaguing the Midwest since 2019, Barkley said. The national cattle herd is at a 75-year low, where locally beef demand remains strong, too. Many consumers are looking to buy from their neighborhood farm. Purchasing a whole, half, or quarter from a local farmer remains one of the most cost-effective ways to purchase beef. The expected continued rise of input costs is one of the main challenges beef cattle farmers are currently facing, something that Barkley said is expected to continue to put a crunch on local farmers. Diesel and fertilizer cost increases are also impacting farmers right now, and Barkley added that it is likely that grain prices will be impacted as well this year if prices stay high. And in this issue, we do have some deaths to report. There was a Joan Anson. She was 72, and she passed away on April 10th. Dolly Comstock, who was 84, passed away on Monday, April 13th. Betty Troutman, who was 88 of Forestville, passed away April 16th. Susan Shearer passed away on April 25th. And Nora Carroll passed away on April 12th. So we have some local and some some news to read for local and region. The county legislators thank Hochul for a new Brooks Hospital. 7 Chautauqua County legislators are expressing gratitude for Governor Kathy Hochul's commitment to a new Brooks TLC hospital to serve residents of Chautauqua County. Legislators Bob Bankowski and Marcus Buchanan of Dunkirk, Sandra Lewis of Fredonia, and Jamestown legislators Tom Nelson, Fred Larson, and Vince DeJoy and Bob Whitney join in praising the first governor from upstate in more than 100 years for delivering $74 million to make the new Brooks Hospital possible. As reported in the Observer on March 17th, work has begun on the site where a state-of-the-art hospital in northern Chautauqua County is to be located. We echo the statement of Don Boyd, President and CEO of Kaleida Health, when he said, "We are deeply grateful to Governor Kathy Hochul for her continued support of this project." And then in our local and state news, inmate in Brockton incident attacks again in Attica. An inmate who had injured a counselor and officer at the Lakeview Shock Incarceration Facility in Brockton during a brutal incident in February has struck again. State Senator George Borrello, a Republican from Sunset Bay, said the inmate who was transferred to Attica Correctional Facility assaulted 6 officers there, sending 1 to the hospital. And according to Borrello, this inmate had not been indicted for the first assault before he struck again. So 2 violent assaults, 2 months, and not even an indictment before it happened again. Let that sink in, he said in a statement Friday. Once again, the governor fails to protect the very people who keep our correctional facilities running. If any other employee in New York State allowed employees to walk into conditions as dangerous, knowing the risks, ignoring repeated warnings, they would face serious consequences. But in Albany, silence, excuses, zero accountability. The governor's own HALT task force laid out recommendations to improve safety. These recommendations? Sitting at a desk collecting dust, while officers continue to get injured, while violence continues to escalate in our prisons. Instead of taking action, this administration and the Democratic majority continue to push pro-criminal policies and rhetoric that embolden this kind of behavior. When there are no real consequences, when violent individuals are cycled through a system with no meaningful deterrent, this is exactly what happens. Multiple officers were injured, a civilian was injured, families impacted, lives disrupted, and still nothing changes. This is just failed leadership. It is a willful negligence. Our correctional officers and employees deserve better, and I believe they do. So there was an ex-New York Police Department sergeant. He was freed from bail while he appeals his conviction for deadly cooler throw. Whoa. In New York, a former New York City police sergeant can stay out of jail while he appeals his manslaughter conviction for tossing a picnic cooler at a fleeing suspect who then crashed his motorized scooter and died, a judge said Friday. The decision by a state appellate court judge came a week after a lower court judge sentenced Eric Duran to 3 to 9 years in prison and ordered him jailed immediately in the 2023 death of 30-year-old Eric Dupre. Judge Salian Scarpula of the Mid-Level Appellate Division ordered Duran freed on $300,000 cash or bond and said he must surrender his passport to his lawyers, who will keep it until his appeal is over. This is a major win for Eric and his family and for law enforcement officers around the country, said Vincent Vale Long, the president of Duran's union, by Sergeants Benevolent Association. A message-seeking comment was left for a lawyer for Dupree's family. Duran, a 38-year-old married father of 3, was the first former New York City Police Department officer sentenced to prison for an on-duty death in at least 2 decades. At Duran's sentencing, defense lawyer Anthony Quinn said he will forever be known as a cooler cop. Here's some area police news. And a Brockton man is charged with forcible touching. A Brockton man has been charged with forcible touching by Chautauqua County Sheriff's Department's deputies. Dale F. Park, 68, of Brockton, was charged Tuesday. According to a police report, deputies received a complaint on October 17, 2025, that Parks allegedly had inappropriate contact with another person. After an investigation into the allegations, investigators with the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office charged Parks, who was given an appearance ticket to be in Portland court later. In Jamestown, Jared D. Eisenhower, 36, of Pennsylvania, was charged April 15th with second-degree strangulation and resisting arrest. According to police, at about 11:10 p.m., officers responded to a Southside address for a reported domestic abuse. Officers arrived on scene and spoke with both parties involved. Upon further investigation, it was found that Eisenhower allegedly choked the victim during the dispute, causing the victim to almost lose consciousness. Officers then attempted to place Eisenhower into custody, in which he then allegedly became combative and resisted officers. After a brief struggle, Eisenhower was placed into custody without further incident and taken to Jamestown City Jail. Then there was a Shanahan L. Lammer, 25, of Cherry Creek, was charged April 12th with driving while intoxicated, per se, and resisting arrest. According to the police, about 5:04 a.m., officers were on patrol on the south side and observed a vehicle commit several traffic violations. A traffic stop was conducted at Newland and Foote Avenues. An investigation revealed that Lammer was operating a vehicle allegedly intoxicated. So after a brief struggle, Lammer was placed into custody and taken to jail. There was a Tashia Berg, 24, of Jamestown, was charged April 15 with endangering the welfare of a child. So according to police, at 3:15 p.m., officers responded to the south side for a report of a young child walking unsupervised near a busy road. With assistance from community members, officers safely located the 3-year-old child and conducted a canvass of the area to identify a parent or guardian. The investigation determined that the child had exited the residence without the knowledge of the child's mother. Berg had been outside for about 20 to 40 minutes, and during that time, Berg did not notify officers while they were canvassing. The child was safely reunited with family members, and arrangements were made to ensure the child's case. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. There are a couple more deaths here from this issue. Doris Manning, who was 94 of Irving, passed away on April 13th. And Xavier Garcia Lopez, who was 64, passed away in Dunkirk on March 27th. Ronald Lyman, 87, of Berry Road in Fredonia, passed away December 10th. And Lionel Rosenblatt, active C for refugees, he also passed away at 82 years old. So there's an 85-year-old widow who was released from U.S. custody, returns to France amid a messy family dispute. In Paris, the 85-year-old widow of an American military veteran held in federal immigration detention returns home to France on Friday, according to the French government and her family. Maria Teresa Ross entered the U.S. last June to begin a new life with a retired U.S. soldier she had met decades ago when he was stationed in France. Court records show, but after her husband's death, Ross's stepson, who is a U.S. federal employee, allegedly intervened to have her taken into immigration custody earlier this month amid a dispute over the estate, an Alabama judge found. She returned to France this morning. This is satisfaction for us, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noel Barrot told reporters during a visit to the southern city of Montpellier on Friday. Barrot said U.S. immigration and customs enforcement methods are not in line with French standards and are not acceptable to us. Federal immigration agents detained Ross in Alabama on April 1st after she overstayed her 90-day visa, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. She was then held at a detention facility in Louisiana as French officials expressed concern about her well-being. Ross's son, Hervé Goy, told the Associated Press that she had been in the process of applying for a green card when she was taken into custody. She's very tired and she's not very good, but it's difficult for her, Goy said. We are very, very happy, but we are tired. Ross was not given the medication she needed while being held in the Louisiana detention facility, according to her attorney, Kim Willingham. She does not feel she or other inmates are being treated well within the facility, Willingham told the AP. She did everything she was supposed to do with regard to obtaining her green card. Ross gave up her pension and moved to Alabama last year to marry William Ross, a retired U.S. soldier she had met when he was stationed in France in the 1960s. Calhoun County court records show, but after William B. Ross died in January, his two sons became embroiled in a dispute with their stepmother over the modest estate, including the home in Anniston, Alabama, where she resided. The sons recounted mail from the residence, leading their stepmother to miss an immigration-related appointment. Calhoun County probate judge noted in a court order earlier this month that Millwood accused one son of using his position as a federal employee to prompt the detention from his stepmother's days before hearing over the estate. So, Maria Teresa Ross was taken into custody in her nightgown, and unable to bring her phone, passport, and other identification with her records. How awful. The stepson denied involvement in his stepmother's arrest in a court, but Millwood said evidence indicated that he knew in advance of the arrest and received a text message confirming it shortly afterwards. His brother then arrived at the home to change the locks 2 hours after federal immigration agents removed their stepmother. In an April 10th ruling, Millwood ordered the stepsons to allow Ross to retrieve her clothes, phone, documents, and other possessions from her late husband's home. Millwood also urged the federal government to investigate the circumstances of Ross's arrest in light of the ongoing national events surrounding the distrust of federal law enforcement officials and the many investigations going on of corruption within our government. The Office of Attorney Megan Huzagina, who is representing the two stepsons in the state dispute, declined to comment. DHS did not immediately respond to a request for comment In an emailed statement, the city of Addison said its police department had no involvement in Ross's arrest. Wow. How sad. Now, on our Monday, April 20th, it's this week, Awkward Debates Highway Post. The town of Awkward is thinking outside the box when it comes to its highest salaried position in the town, the role of highway superintendent. Town supervisor Brian McAvee presented a local law to the board to change the role from a full-time salaried position elected by the residents to a redefined position appointed by the town board. Before the local law can be approved, the residents of the town have a chance to speak their minds, and the town of Awkward has scheduled a public hearing for its next regular town board meeting, May 11th at 6:30. So there's also some concerns raised over commercial chicken farms. And Clymer, a large-scale commercial chicken farms are popping up both in the town of Clymer and neighboring communities, and one resident is expressing concern to the Clymer Town Board. Cole Gleason approached the board to learn more about the chicken barns, following him and his family's recently buying a property in the town, and having a neighborhood approach them about working on getting permits for a chicken barn. Well, said he did not know how far along the neighbor was in the permit process. Gleason began digging into it, following the conversation, and became more and more concerned as he went. As I started going into it, it started making me be more and more concerned for Clymer and the community in general, Gleason said. Obviously, I haven't lived here my whole life, but I've been here for about 10 years now, and Clymer is a special place. I don't just say that. The difference with this is that these barns are not just farmer-owned, they're actually more run by the commercial industry. And Gleason said his understanding is that a particular commercial business comes in, finds land that would work for it to build, says it will supply the chickens and the feed, but the landowner will foot the bill and be paid by them depending on how well the chickens do producing eggs and how big they get if they are raised for meat. I went for a walk one time in Clarence and went by a chicken farm, and it smelled so bad we had to turn around and walk away. So I could imagine what these chicken farms smell like. So the town of Pomfret wants lower speed on Fredonia-Stockton Road. The town of Pomfret is seeking a speed limit reduction on Fredonia-Stockton Road. The Pomfret Town Board agreed this month to recommend it in letter to the Chautauqua County Division of Transportation. A stretch of road from the Fredonia Village line to the Volgildley Center is the targeted area. The road is Water Street in Fredonia. The roadway is Water Street in Fredonia, where the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. It currently soars to 55 miles per hour at the town line, where it becomes Fredonia-Stockton Road. Near the Low Gadice Center, a vocational school run by BOCES there, is a reduced speed zone of 40 miles an hour. And here's a couple more deaths on this issue also. In Dayton, Danny Weaver, 74 of Dayton, passed away on April 16th. Veronica Halftown Stevens passed away in Irving on April 16th. Here's to your good health with Dr. Roach. What is the correct amount of water humans should drink? Please write about the correct amount of water that people should drink. There's so much misinformation. And he says there is so much misinformation since a simple answer like more is always better is easier than a nuisance answer. It depends on your age, activity level, the temperature and humidity, any medications you might be taking, and whether your kidneys have any issues. However, the simplest answer, which is true for most people, is that your body has a built-in system called the thirst reflex to make sure that you're getting enough fluid. There are only a few times when you should override the system. The most important expectation is in older people who sometimes have a decreased thirst mechanism. This is particularly the case in people who live in long-term care facilities or those who have physical or cognitive disabilities. As such, reminders to drink a reasonable amount, like 1.6 liters or about 7 to 8 ounce glasses for women, 2 liters or 8-ounce glasses for men of all liquids during the day can be helpful. Alcohol, of course, isn't helpful and can be harmful to a person's fluid status. People are taking diuretics do not need more water. In fact, excess water drinking while on most diuretics can lead to abnormally slow sodium levels. Another way to tell if you're getting enough water is the volume and concentration of your urine. People should generally avoid every few hours, and the color of the urine shouldn't be dark. Needing to urinate less frequently or having concentrated urine should be an indication for a person to drink a few more glasses of water. Okay. We have some area police news in this issue. In Chautauqua County Sheriff's Department at about 2:19 a.m. Saturday, the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office conducted a traffic stop on Eagle Street in the village of Fredonia. The operator was identified as Eliania Grover, 23, of Dunkirk. Further investigation found Grover to be driving while intoxicated, so she was charged with DWI. And then in Hanover at about 2:04 p.m. Saturday, deputies made a traffic stop for failing to stop at a stop sign, and the driver was identified as Justice Smith, who was 42, of South Dayton. It was discovered through an investigation that he was driving while intoxicated. In Ripley, at 12:42 p.m. Saturday, deputies were dispatched for a reported disorderly person. The suspect, a 64-year-old Cheryl Williamson, was located by Westfield Police. Through an investigation, it was found that Williamson had committed 7th-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance. She was brought to the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office, where she was issued tickets with orders to appear in the village of Westfield court later. Then in Jamestown, there was a Justin Conklin, 27, who was charged with 2nd-degree criminal contempt and outstanding warrants. So at 10:38 a.m. Saturdays, officials responded to the Northside address for an unwanted male. Officers located Conklin walking out of the rear entrance of the home. He was a stay-away order of protection for him to stay away from the victim and their property. He also had multiple outstanding felony warrants through the city of Jamestown for a similar incident Friday. Then there was a Jacob Matterly, who was 32, was charged with 2nd-degree criminal contempt and a uniform traffic ticket. So at 6:59 a.m. Saturday, officers stopped the vehicle in downtown area for an observed traffic infraction. Through investigation, they found that the operator, Matherly, had a stay-away order of protection against a female who was a passenger. Matherly was taken into custody without incident and is being held at the county jail. Oh. And we are going to continue on to our last observer, which is Tuesday, April 21st. So you are listening to a reading of articles and features for the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So the Voice Star, which we read about before, millions across the nation watched Sunny Fredonia student Lucas West on his journey from a blind audition to the finale of NBC's singing competition, The Voice Battle of Champions. Well, Wednesday evening, West will give the Dunkirk Fredonia community its own special performance as a thank you for supporting him along the way. So that was yesterday. So he gave a singing performance, and he came in third, I believe, we read before, which was pretty good. So there's a Jamestown man, in other news, who's sentenced in death of an 8-month-old. In Mayville, 2 years ago, Sean Thomas was watching his girlfriend's 8-month-old daughter, Anaya Turk, when he apparently became frustrated and ended up strangling the infant to death. Oh my goodness. He deserves to be put in jail. Prosecutors don't see him as someone who is purely evil, but rather as someone who didn't have the proper maturity to care for such a young child and lost control of his actions. As a result, the 28-year-old Jamestown resident pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced by County Court Judge David Foley to 20 years in state prison plus 5 years post-supervision. Thomas was originally charged with second-degree murder, in which he could have gotten 25 years to life. So there is a teacher and a counselor is to resign from Silver Creek Several resignations were accepted at a recent Silver Creek Board of Education meeting. Among them, a special education teacher and a school counselor. Amanda, 1/3 C, is set to resign from her teaching position in special education at the end of the year. Dunkirk cited a significantly longer commute from her new home outside of the district as a reason for her resignation. Duckett was hired by Silver Creek in August of 24. She brought 10 years of experience from the field from another district with her to Silver Creek. In her letter of resignation, Duckett wrote, "I have truly enjoyed working here and feel very grateful for the opportunities, knowledge, and experiences I have gained during my short time at Silver Creek. Supporting our students and cooperating with such a knowledgeable and caring group of educators and staff has been an amazing experience." Then Kelsey White submitted her resignation from the role of school counselor effective April 30. Wise provided 30 days of notice and said in her resignation letter, "I wish the district all the best in its future endeavors." The board also accepted the resignation of teaching assistant Rachel Schneider effective May 1st. Schneider previously retired from a 20-year military career before joining Silver Creek Schools. She expressed an interest in remaining as a substitute and a coach with the district. And additionally, Melissa Redska resigned from the 10-month role of cleaner effective April 2nd. And we also have some deaths to report in this issue also. Donna Town, who was 86 of Gowanda, formerly of Quartzites in Perrysburg, passed away April 18th. Danielle Russell passed away April 3rd. And then we have, hold on just a minute, there's a really long thing about her. Nora Carroll of Tonawanda and Sunset Bay entered into arrest on April 12th. Florence Teresa Seibert, who was 96, passed away on April 19th. Jean Dill of Dunkirk, she was 69, passed away on April 20th. Stephen Karen, 79 in Dunkirk, passed away on April 17th. And then there was another news. A mother and 6 children were killed in an explosion and fire at Central Pennsylvania home. In Mill Hall, Pennsylvania, an Amish woman and her 6 children, ranging in ages from 3 to 11, were killed in a swift-moving house fire after an explosion that shook nearby houses in rural North Center Pennsylvania, authorities said. Firefighters responding to a report of an explosion and fire at a home in Lamar Township in Clinton County near Mill Hall on Sunday morning said 7 people were trapped, but they couldn't search the house engulfed in flames. All 7 died. People identified them as Sarah Stolfus, 34, 4 sons, aged 11, 10, 5, and 3, and 2 daughters, ages 8 and 6. An obituary posted online by a local funeral home identified Stolfus as a member of the Old Order Amish Church community. She was survived by her husband, David Stolfus. We're going to go to some local and state news. So, State Police Safety Campaign targets teen drivers. The New York State Police will participate in a statewide multiple agency traffic safety campaign focused on reducing crashes involving teen drivers. And each year, the communities across New York State experience tragic losses of high school students in traffic crashes leading up to graduation. In an effort to reduce these tragedies, the governor's Traffic Safety Committee launched this campaign in 2014. The empty chair symbolizes the absence of a high school senior lost to a preventable crash on graduation day. The week-long No Empty Chair campaign will run from through Friday. And here's an opinion. It's a commentary by Ronald Kidder. He's a Stowe resident. He said, "Getting used to getting old. I think that you have to be in your 80s before you get used to getting old. It takes a while. So in that respect, I have arrived. Every morning at about 6 a.m. when I limped into Hogan's Hut to get the paper And the staff says, "Good morning, Mr. Critter. I realized that my gait and gray hair had given me seniority. It is part of getting old, getting used to being old. Of course, when I meet with old friends, there's also that constant reminder. Someone is getting a new knee, someone else is getting used to their new hip, others are seeing an oncologist or orthopedist for various illnesses and ailments. Ah, welcome to the golden years. Yet, no complaints. Not only is there no alternative, it is what it's supposed to be. As Yogi might have said, getting old is part of being old." For the younger generation, I could also assure you that your mobility and energy is also highly regarded by those of my age. The other day I had a small part that I had ordered to fix my car, but installing it meant that I had to bend over, almost get on my knees, and kick my head sideways in order to get it attached. Well, at first and failed try, I took it to a young friend, a car guy, who fixed it in just a couple of minutes. Thanks to younger people who can still fix things. Getting used to getting old, however, does not mean that you become complacent. You may think that once you are retired, you don't have to worry as much about discipline. Well, the opposite's true. You need to be more disciplined. You need to learn to live within your ability, or more aptly, within your inabilities. There are compensations, of course. You can enjoy and spoil grandchildren. You can pontificate about the great lessons of life that you've learned. You can read more books and articles than ever before, and your phone calls usually last more than 2 minutes. Well, in the winter, other pastime for my people my age is the routine of assembling jigsaw puzzles. I never knew how effective they were at killing time and staying busy until I started doing them. Staying active is one way or the other is important, even if it means lining up shapes and colors that have been cut into 1,000 pieces for the purpose of having them put back together again. My wife has always been more inclined than me to go out and socialize. Winter weather now gives me another argument for staying home. There is nothing like hunkering around the fire on a cold winter night with a couple of dogs to keep you company, and putting your feet up with a book in your hands. Getting old provides a good excuse to do that. So old age does have its advantages. There is nothing bad about getting old. You just have to adapt and get used to it. And from local and region news, the community egg hunt organizers want to thank the hosts and sponsors. Organizers of the recent sensory-friendly Easter egg hunt extend sincere appreciation to Raymore and Flanagan of Jamestown for generously hosting the event at his Fairmont Avenue location. The welcoming space and strong community support provided by Raymore and Flanagan were instrumental in creating a safe, calm, and inclusive environment for families to enjoy the celebration. Event organizers also gratefully acknowledge TA Auto Repair and U-Haul Jamestown for its generous golden ticket prize basket donation, which added excitement for participating families, and GA Family Services for its donations of candy, helping to make the event festive and memorable for children in attendance. The success of this event would have been possible without the generosity of our hosts and sponsors, said event organizers. Their support allowed us to provide a meaningful and welcoming experience for foster, adoptive, and kinship families in our community. The sensory-friendly egg hunt was organized through a cooperation community partnership, including the Chautauqua County Department of Social Services, CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates, CHQ Foster, and Adoption Connection, and GA Family Services. The event brought families together for a morning of fun, connection, and celebration, while highlighting the positive impact of community cooperation. Organizers extend a heartfelt thanks to everyone who contributed their time, resource, and support to help make the event a success. And then in other news, the Lions Club plans environmental project Saturday. The Mayville Chautauqua Lions Club will hold a service project to pick up trash and other debris on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. at the Chautauqua Lakeside Park. The club will meet in front of the Carlson Building. Its goal will be to help the community keep the park pristine and begin an ongoing effort to do our part as stewards of the environment. And then there's a Krause Seminar on Smart City Research announced. The Krause Seminar on Smart City Research will be led by State University of New York at Fredonia faculty in April. The event is slated for Monday in Williams Center, room S204 ABC from 1:30 to 5:30. The seminar is sponsored by the Krause Fredonia Conservations and the Disciples Award established through the Fredonia College Foundation and co-sponsored by the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, Buffalo Section. Sunny Distinguished Professor Junaid Sabari is serving as chair, and Dr. Syed Haider, an associate professor in the Department of Computer Information Sciences. Dr. Megan Johnson, an assistant professor of the Department of Mathematical Sciences, are co-chairs of the seminar. The event will feature distinguished researchers from around the world presenting their work on topics such as artificial intelligence and urban systems, sustainable infrastructure, intelligent transportation, IoT-enabled services, and data-driven governance. And in Wall Street report, oil prices rise, of course. Last time I got gas, it was $4.19, and I think it's still $4.19 right now, a gallon. So oil prices climbed Monday following the latest rise of tensions between the United States and Iran, but the moves were more modest than they were earlier in the war. U.S. stocks, meanwhile, gave back a bit of their record-breaking rally. The Standard & Poor's 500 slipped 0.2% from its all-time high for just its second drop in 14 days after the United States seized an Iranian-flagged cargo vessel that it said had tried to evade its blockade of Iranian ports. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dipped 4 points, or less than 0.1%, and the NASDAQ Composite fell 0.3%. The price for a barrel of Brent crude oil, the international standard, climbed 5.6% to settle at $95.48 on worries that Iran could keep petroleum pent into the Persian Gulf and as continues to block tankers from exiting the Strait of Hormuz. As a turnaround from the prior trading day on Wall Street, when stocks soared and oil prices tumbled after Iran said Friday it was reopening the strait to commercial traffic. The enthusiasm vanished quickly after Iran closed the strait again Saturday, following the U.S. decision to press ahead with a blockade of Iranian ports. The next big deadline is looming on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which is early Wednesday Tehran time, when a ceasefire agreement between the United States and Iran is scheduled to expire. Still, oil prices remain well below the high points reached so far in the war. Brent crude's price briefly got above $119 per barrel when fears were at the highest, and the Standard & Poor's 500 is still above where it was before the war. Wow. So FBI Director Kash Patel sues the Atlantic for an article that alleged excessive drinking. FBI Director Kash Patel hit the Atlantic magazine with a $250 million defamation lawsuit on Monday, claiming an article that talked about mismanagement of the agency and his alleged excessive drinking was false and a malicious hit piece. The Atlantic said it stood by its reporting and would vigorously defend against the meritless lawsuit. In the article posted on the magazine's website Friday, author Sarah Fitzpatrick said Patel is deeply concerned about losing his job and that he has a good reason to think so, including some having to do with what witnesses described to me as bouts of excessive drinking. Fitzpatrick was also named as a defendant. His behavior, including both conspicuous inebriation and unexplained absences, has alarmed officials at the FBI and Department of Justice, leading one official speaking anonymously to say that worry about what would happen in the case of a terrorist attack in the U.S. keeps me up at night, the magazine said. Patel, still described as pivotal for a Trump White House, and the White House told the Atlantic that Patel remains a critical player on President Donald Trump's law and order team and credited him for decreases in the crime rate. Trump's team is also said to be pleased by Patel's willingness to go after the president's rivals. So we've got a couple minutes, there was area police report. Joseph Graleski, 41 of Jamestown, was charged with driving while intoxicated. Charles Cooper, 20 of Jamestown, charged with second-degree menacing. He was chasing another vehicle. The
following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book,